Yeah, I'm not sure what I was expecting that to do. Welcome to Devotion Encampment. It's my current Rimworld colony, and one I've decided spontaneously to begin documenting several years into the playthrough. A little background here. Despite having the Anomaly DLC since day one, I still haven't gotten around to beating it. Not necessarily for lack of...
Dies irae, dies illa, solvet seclum in favilla.
And so I dove back into Anomaly. This brings us to the planet Rigel Prior, or maybe it's Rigel Prior? I think Rigel is spelled with an E. Henry's Ruination Ocean sounds like a good name for a bad band or a bad amusement park. Having tried everything else and inevitably failed, there's only one thing left to do: turn to God. Devotion Encampment is not just a colony, it is a fortress monastery committed to battling the evil forces of the Anomaly on the Rim. I've even given my warrior monks maces. I know that warrior monks going into battle with maces isn't exactly historically accurate, but it's still pretty fun. Like every monastery, ours is full of honest, industrious, intellectual people who, if it weren't for God's boundless grace, would probably be in jail or an early grave. Mind you, there are still plenty of graves. This is Rimworld, after all. You'll notice the prominent memorial to all the people we've lost so far, and you'll probably notice that it's going to need expanding before this is all over. I still have Perry as an AI storyteller, but he's now in rotation with a few other vanilla-themed storytellers. And also Careless Cultist, a storyteller I thought might throw more Anomaly events my way, but mostly throws mech clusters at me. I've never played on a Tundra before, and I feel like the Anomaly DLC lends itself to playthroughs in desolate, inhospitable environments. But having played with this tundra biome for a while, I may never play on tundra again, or at least not one that only has a 10-day growing period. Every single growing season has been different, but they've all ended the same. They're cut short by toxic fallout, volcanic winter, cold snaps, blights, you name it. I never get the resources that I need. And that's another issue I've had in this playthrough, is a never-ending resource bottlenecking. The cold kills off the crops, and it also stunts the trees. We've had to invest heavily in these heated greenhouses. And I also made the unforced error of building all my walls out of slate, which is in short supply on this map. It all looks nice, but it takes forever to build. You've probably also noticed the single square wide hallways, which I know is a no-no in Rimworld, and that the outer walls are only single wide, which in a biome like this doesn't help with retaining the heat in the base. Well, at any rate, I'm enjoying the colonists. I started this colony after the Anomaly update that bumped you up from 2 colonists to 3, plus a ghoul. Oh yeah, right, we had a ghoul, didn't we? He died. 3 Anomaly attempts in, and I swear I cannot keep a ghoul alive. I keep overestimating their healing factor or underestimating the local wildlife. My first ghoul died to a turkey, and this ghoul died to a wolf. That's something that might be mistaken for progress. Of our original colonists, we still have 2. There's the spiritual leader, Rosta, an entrepreneur with good social skills and cooking, though he is non-violent and elderly. Rasta is still good at helping out around the base, though. Then we have Takumi, a starship janitor who's really good at crafting, and also elderly. His age caught up with him very quickly in the playthrough. He was actually bedridden for a while up until we replaced his spine. I know taking on a non-violent and 2 elderly colonists as my starters was probably not a good idea, but I like the randomly generated colonists. Taking the bad with the good is part of the fun. Vitali was the youngest member of our starters. He was a greedy miner who took the position of the colony's first leader so that we could justify giving him a nice bedroom. It made sense. He fell for a reformed raider named Jet. They married about a week before Vitali was killed by a mech cluster. Jet died about a week later when she was trapped by manhunters on the far side of the map. Polo was one of our earliest recruits still living, and he's the closest thing to a main character we have. Polo's actually one of the Anomaly creeps. I have a mod that lets creeps better integrate into the colony. a haunted cult kid who came here as a teen, and has actually managed to carve out a place for himself here. Literally, he's a crafter. He was originally going to marry a rescue that we picked up named Josephine, until she died. Luckily, at the exact same time she died, we were offered a quest with a reward of a resurrector. And we got that resurrector, used it on her, and then she was killed in the very next raid. I'm taking that as a sign. Eventually, Polo fell in love again with Jevin, an Impid stewkeeper that we recruited after an Impid raid. She's been cooking and crafting for us, and the two actually fell in love crafting in the workroom together. Their first child was an unfortunate miscarry, but their second child, Rin, is alive, well, and growing up nicely. I was skeptical about Levin. Like I say, we keep having bad luck with elderly colonists, but despite being in his 70s, Levin's actually been really good. So good that when Vitali died, I decided to make him the new leader. He may not be our founder, but he's certainly the man who built this colony up into what it is today. I've also noticed that I have him sleeping in Vitali's old nice bedroom, when Levin it doesn't have the greedy trait. He wants to be living in the barracks with the other monks. Bourbon was a crash-landed refugee who just so happened to be Vitali's son. He didn't really get to build much of a rapport with his father before his father died, but we'd have taken him anyway. It turns out he's a good doctor. Well, skilled doctor. He's technically a highly unethical doctor. I kinda get the impression that he's really only here because he has nowhere else to go. He eventually fell in love with Zot, a chaste refugee we took in as a teenager. Zot is the best shot in the colony, so we gave her the charge lance that we picked up in a raid. Not much else about her really stands out to me, if I'm being honest. Joel is yet another elderly, non-violent colonist, because apparently I can't have enough of them. Luckily, he's really good at crafting, and his old age isn't really holding him back much. And I guess a colony can't have too many crafters. Rounding out the list is Lydia, an Impid who's a heavy sleeper, which means she misses all the nighttime battles. Bell, a Neanderthal. I gave him a nice spacer gun, despite the fact that Neanderthals don't really use guns very well. There's also Bichoin? I'm not sure how you say that exactly. A Yidakin that we picked up to deal with our colony's animals. We have some llamas and dogs, and we're trying to make something of that, I guess. I don't know, Rimworld feels a little funny unless you have a collection of animals. And Jack. Jack is a colony settler who's just sort of melted into the woodwork, but that's kind of what we like about him, though. There's also Ariel, who was an evangelist, but for a completely different ideology before she converted. Then we also have Sissy and Adam, two teenage refugees who came to the colony. Adam once soloed a mech cluster with only a dynamite stick. We had him do this because the colony was in pretty dire straits and needed that mech cluster dealt with. Having come through in the clutch, we've since made him into something of our elite shock trooper, giving him marine armor and a bullpup rifle and sending him on all of our most dangerous missions. Just at the moment, the colony's being hit with something of a double whammy, two issues that we've been ignoring for a little bit. Bugs to the north and mechs to the east. Clearing out the bugs is actually pretty simple. I've really only been keeping them around because I was hoping we could get them to fight the mechanoids. I couldn't really figure out a good way to do that though, so we're just taking them out now. The mechs have killed so many of my colonists that I've actually decided to take it very cautiously. The plan I eventually hit upon is to throw down a summoning circle, perform an arcane ritual, and summon animals in the hopes that they will be manhunters who will fight the mechs for us. We've had to use summon animals quite a bit in this colony. Like I said, we can't grow as much food as we would like, and so we've had to rely on hunting. And if there's nothing to hunt, well, we go hungry. So summoning animals has just been a quick and dirty solution to that problem. The room we're using as a dining room was actually a dedicated summoning circle for a while. You never build a fortress monastery intending to create a space for occult rituals, but like divorce or bankruptcy, it doesn't matter what you plan for. And the ritual works like a charm. We not only get manhunters, but manhunting wargs who tear the mechanoids to shreds, mopping up as a breeze. I decided to take some time to redesign the workroom to better accommodate the fabrication bench. What's currently the workroom used to be our barracks until we had a bit more of an expansion. The space that's currently the freezer was originally our freezer and kitchen. The area that is now the kitchen and hospital were a storeroom. It's nice to have a hospital, but now I don't have any storage space. I've also sketched out an expansion to the base that will better incorporate this geothermal generator, as well as almost certainly give us more room for more greenhouses and more storage. Originally, I actually had plans to build a big, fancy cathedral somewhere. That's probably not going to happen. Not just because I don't have any resources for it, but because I don't know where I'd even put it at this point. I also got rid of the tables and chairs in the male and female barracks. Those were sort of a holdover anyway from back when the barracks were a little more spread out across the colony. Now that we've condensed all of that into a sort of living annex where the barracks are next to the church and the rec room and the dining room, come to think of it, I'm not even sure why I bothered moving those tables and chairs. I also noticed that my altar is wrong. I think something might have been bugged out, but I've got it working now, so it's fine. It feels like we're getting to the end of our resource bottlenecks, or at least getting to a point where they are less obnoxious. We've got deep mining up and running, or at least we've got people to actually work the drills and man the scanner. We also have people to hunt, farm, and fish, and fishing in Rimworld seems relaxing. We also dealt with a normal manhunter, eventually, and even deactivated an obelisk without incident. And then we got another mech cluster. Since the mech cluster is landing right on top of us and there's an auto mortar in it, we really can't afford to ignore it, and we really aren't able to avoid it. We have to do something about it. And, okay, so, alright, I think my plan was sound. We get Adam, we send him in to soften them up with some dynamite, then the other colonists take up positions behind our colony's embrasures and cover his retreat. Unfortunately, I severely underestimated the blast radius of the unstable power cell and greatly overestimated the armor that I had given to Adam. Adam died. I probably should have only had him just throw in the one stick and then get the hell out of Dodge. That's an unforced error on my part. Oh, and Jack got bullseyed by a mechanoid charge lance too. Great. I swear the mechanoids have killed more of my colonists than the anomaly monsters. Oh, this is all so depressing. Jack may not have been a standout colonist, but he was a good colonist. Adam has been our best equipped and elite shock trooper. Of course, now that I think about it, having a single shock trooper that we send on our most dangerous missions is probably a good way of getting that colonist killed. I suppose I'll wrap things up with a quick observation about colony aesthetics. Alpha Meme's Christian style seems to largely focus on medieval hand weapons and spacer-level armor. Wanting something a little extra, I downloaded the Divine Order mod. Now, I like this apparel, and I'm obviously using this apparel, but it's mostly high-end medieval stuff when we're kind of going up against industrial and spacer-level enemies. It's not the best thing. We really should be phasing it out. You know, when I think about the time researching it and resources invested in making it, I probably would have been better off just giving my colonists flak armor. I'd have probably lost fewer colonists, too. I do like the apparel in this mod. I mean, just look at the little hat Rosta has. That's nice. Worth the price alone. Well, that's enough damage for one day, I suppose. Farewell for now from Devotion Encampment.